taken, printouts taken before they leave so that it's on everybody's name.
Yeah, they're just putting the वो format लिख के भी करवा दो.
Start?
Yes, sir.
You want to say something?
You can start right away, sir. No problem.
Good afternoon to all of you. I intend to read a brief opening statement, and then I shall be happy to take a few questions on the budget. Let me preface it by saying that I've had less than 2 hours to go through the budget papers. Therefore, I can't say that this is a complete or comprehensive analysis of the budget. These are mainly the first impressions and on a reading of the key budget documents. Perhaps in due course we can have a more comprehensive analysis of the budget. After listening to the budget speech or after reading the text, what is the one big takeaway for the average citizen? It is that there is no big idea. Its only virtue is that it has left every section equally disappointed. This is the third budget of the NDA government. The first two were forgettable. The Prime Minister had promised that he would reform to transform. The word reform is a little understood but much used word. Reform means reform of factor markets or product markets. There is little evidence of such reform in the budget. So the NDA has followed its own brand of budget making, which is just housekeeping and accounting. Thanks to the crash in oil prices, that required hardly any effort. The government boasts that it earned more tax revenues than it had budgeted at the beginning of the year. Did they collect more corporation tax? No. Did they collect more income tax? No. What they collected more was excise duties. It is a whopping increase of rupees 54,334 crore. That amount was due to the numerous times the government increased excise duties on petrol and diesel after the budget was presented last year. I had predicted that the government will comfortably achieve the target of fiscal deficit in the current year. It has, and I'm happy. I'm also happy that the government has spurned the advice of the Chief Economic Advisor and stuck to its own fiscal consolidation path for 2016-17. I take it as a vindication of the UPA government's policy declared after adopting the Vijay Kelkar Committee's report on fiscal consolidation. In the last 2 years, the government had turned its back on rural India, the agriculture sector, and the social sector programs. I would like to test the commitment of the government as they appear from the budget and revised estimates for 2015-16 under a few major heads. Major head, budget estimates and revised estimates. General education, the budget estimate was 19,885 crore. They will spend only 18,824 crore. Medical and public health, budget estimate was 10,852 crore. They will spend a little less, 10,682 crore. Housing, the budget estimate is 1,404 crore. They will spend nearly 1/4 less, 1,110 crore. Social security and welfare, the budget estimate was 6,387 crore. Well, they will spend only about half of it, 3,504 crore. Major and medium irrigation, the estimate was 572 crore. They will spend only 481 crore. Minor irrigation, The estimate was 306 crore. They will spend only 254 crore. I may, however, note that the expenditure budgets have been achieved or exceeded under heads such as water supply and sanitation, very marginally under the head welfare of SC, ST, OBC and minorities, and relief on account of natural calamities. 3 areas were crying for attention: the rural economy, private investments, and exports. How has the government addressed the problems in these 3 areas? On agriculture, I am happy that the UPA schemes are being continued, but the crucial signal is price. The NDA government reneged on its promise to give cost plus 50%. It did worse last year by giving meager or nil increases in minimum support price, MSP. The budget speech makes no promise of a fair and remunerative MSP, nor is there any major initiative to increase productivity in crucial crops. On private investment, this is one of the 4 engines of economic growth and is sputtering for the last 18 months. While several paragraphs of the speech have been devoted to public investment, there is little to encourage or attract private investment. The government seems to be unaware of the problems of the core sectors such as power, steel, coal, mining, cement, construction, and oil and gas. In these sectors, many projects are stranded and there is little new investment. Besides, there is a problem of high interest rates. I am disappointed that these issues were not addressed. On exports, except for one bland sentence in paragraph 86, there is no mention of exports. I think after 14 successive months of negative growth, government has given up on the export front. The government promised a predictable tax regime. However, Part B of the speech belies that promise. There is no major relief to the taxpayer or the middle class or the small and medium business person. The reduction in the corporate tax rate for a very limited class from 30% to 29% is laughable. Besides, there are new cesses and surcharges. Despite having an absolute majority in the Lok Sabha, government could not summon the courage to repeal the retrospective tax on capital gains, the so-called Vodafone tax. The tax proposals are a bag of miscellany that do not reveal any taxation philosophy or tax policy. In the financial sector, only 3 proposals of the FSLRC will be taken up for passing legislation. The direct taxes code seems to have been buried permanently. There is a lukewarm reference to the GST bills, but there is no promise of accommodating the legitimate criticism of the opposition. Finally, the government has wisely refrained from predicting the growth rate for 2016-17. The economic survey was restrained in assuming a growth rate of about 7%. The budget papers have given the GDP figures for 2015-16 and 2016-17 and have calculated the nominal growth at 11%. If these are the government's numbers, I would like to ask how much will be the real GDP growth in 2016-17. We know the RBI's target for inflation in 2016-17 is 4 to 6%. How much does that leave for growth? It would be a pity that all this elaborate exercise yields ultimately moderate GDP growth of about 6%. Altogether, I'm afraid the budget has been a wasted opportunity. Yeah. Mistakes. Yeah.
Any questions?
Mr. Chidambaram?
Yes.
Mr. Chidambaram, would you agree with the critique? That this budget is more political than economic in character, which may not be really a bad thing for a ruling political party.
Well, I don't know who made that criticism, but clearly the third budget of a government which presented two forgettable budgets was expected to be political, and I'm not surprised.
You make 2-3 assertions in your statement just now about the retrospective tax. You were also finance minister after Mr. Pranab Mukherjee. Why? What stopped the then UPA government from going against it? And if you keep asking them, they've made it at least abundantly clear that there is no question of this being ever repeated again.
We did not do it because we did not have a majority in the Lok Sabha. That is the first reason. It was a money bill, and if I had attempted to move the money bill and the bill had been defeated, the government would have fallen. The second reason is, having introduced the retrospective tax in our government, and if we had repealed that, we would have been accused of corruption. This government did not have the baggage of the retrospective tax. And that is why very early in the government I told my good friend, the finance minister, go ahead and repeal the tax, and I'm sure the Congress party will support you. He has 282. He should repeal the tax. The retrospective part of it. Yes.
आप बहुत सारी बातें कह रहे हैं कि मेजॉरिटी नहीं थी इसलिए नहीं कर पाया एक इंटरव्यू आपका आजकल छप रहा है उसमें कह रहे हैं आप अफसर के नाम पर कि मैं बहुत सारी चीजें नहीं कर पाया
Can we have questions on the budget today? I think I've already answered. So let's have questions on the budget today.
This time,
You can wait, let them finish the questions on the budget, yes.
this time, this is course correction. After 2 budgets, now there is more emphasis on agriculture and rural sector.
See, I have already commented on what I found on the paragraphs relating to agriculture. While there are many paragraphs, the crucial signal in agriculture is price. Last year, I think the farmers were cheated. In many cases, there was a very paltry increase in MSP. In some cases, there was zero increase in MSP. So I would have expected that the price signal is given clearly to the farmers. Everything else can be said, these are long gestation programs like irrigation and soil testing and all. But immediately it is the price signal that will enthuse the farmer. One of the reasons for acute distress in rural India is that farmers are not getting fair and remunerative prices for their produce.
Or will it be able to carry out this Indian economy from the deflation? Number 2 question. Do you think it lacks in a critical approach what is required in shaping the budget from the planning commission point of view?
There is no planning commission today to have a point of view. In fact, this is the last year of the plan. The government has not yet told us whether there will be another plan at all. We don't know, and who is going to make the plan? We don't know. Be that as it may. If the nominal growth rate is 11%, I don't know what the real GDP growth rate will be. Because if you allow for inflation, and the RBI's range is 4 to 6% with a target of 5% in January 2017, even if you assume that they will achieve the target of inflation of 5%, it doesn't leave too much room for growth beyond 6%. The economic survey seems to think 7%. But whether it is 6% or 7%, it will be a decline from the growth rate that they have predicted for the current year, which is 7.6%.
So how do you see
Mehboob, I'll come to you, ma'am.
So there is this one element of granting amnesty to all these people who have black money stashed abroad. You have had some kind of a policy back in 1997. I just read it. I may be mistaken. That you kind of granted the same kind of amnesty in a compliance window. Is that true? Like, or if at all that happened in the past, why didn't it work in government's favor at that point in time?
VDIS scheme of 2007 was a grand success. 1997 was a grand success. We collected over 10,000 crore and rupees 30,000 crore was disclosed by people who had unaccounted money. And I think uniformly everybody said it was a grand success. But the Supreme Court stepped in later and said such schemes may not pass the test of law. They didn't strike it down, but they just cautioned that it may not pass the test of law. But I find that the finance minister has indeed announced a very limited compliance scheme, beginning 1st of June and ending the 30th of September. Unless I look into the details, I cannot say what kind of a scheme that will be. But there is a limited scheme announced for, I think, June, July, August, and September.
Ma'am,
you mentioned this to be a wasted opportunity. What, according to you, were the top two things that the finance minister should have done? And secondly, sir, as far as the whole fiscal prudence versus growth argument is concerned, the finance minister has, of course, chosen the path of fiscal consolidation. What is the best opportunity that you had to spur growth for?
I don't think fiscal consolidation is the antithesis of growth. I think you can have fiscal consolidation and growth. In fact, between 2004 and 2009, if you go back and look at the 2007-8 numbers, we achieved fiscal consolidation, and that 5-year period was the highest growth in any 5-year period. In fact, the 10 years of the UPA was the highest decadal growth. So I don't think there is a contradiction between fiscal consolidation and growth. I think fiscal consolidation is necessary, and with fiscal consolidation, growth is also possible. That's our philosophy.
How many marks you will give for the budget?
I'm not a rating agency.
So how do you view
I'll come.
मिनिस्टर रहे हैं, आपने भी बहुत सारे बजट पेश किए हैं संसद के भीतर. 10 में से कितने मार्क्स आप देते हैं? 10 में से कितने?
I've just answered it.
He just answered.
I'm not a rating agency.
Ajay.
Has JT passed the test? Has JT passed the test?
There is no mention of defense budget this time. How does it?
There is. The numbers are there. I've seen the numbers for defense. The allocation for defense is there. I'll tell you the numbers. For defense services, the revised estimates for this year were 1,43,236. For next year, the budget estimate is 1,62,759 under revenue expenditure. $4,588 crore for capital expenditure. They will be able to spend only 81,400 crore. Something like 13,000 crore is being returned without spending. That shows poor management of the capital account of the Defense Ministry.
Say again, please.
I brought it. You see, the GST is being delayed only because the government is unwilling to step away from its stubborn position. We have pointed out 3 flaws in the bill. The Chief Economic Advisor has virtually endorsed us, not in so many words, virtually endorsed us. When he said that the 1% was retrograde, that the dispute resolution mechanism, he didn't comment on it, his silence itself was a comment. And he agreed that 16% or so is sufficient for a revenue neutral rate. So I think there is broad support among the business community and among the people that these criticisms are legitimate and these flaws must be fixed before you pass the bill. I simply do not understand why the government is adamant and is not willing to accommodate these three criticisms of the flaws.
Sir, education.
You want it?
No, first talk about the budget.
Let's have budget.
This is only about the budget, please. We'll come to you. I know you've got concerns, but let's talk about the budget.
The BJP had promised in the election manifesto that they will pay 50% more to the farmers.
Yes.
The cost incurred by them.
I said that.
But recently in the Supreme Court, they told the Supreme Court that it is not possible for them. As a former finance minister, do you think that it is possible for a government at the central level to pay that much amount to a farmer given the crunch of resources?
No, that was never the Congress's position. The Congress's position was, having regard to the economic situation in every given year, fair and remunerative prices must be given to the farmer. When we gave MSP increases, it was widely welcomed. We did not give meager increases of 5 rupees and 10 rupees. It is the BJP's position that they will give cost plus 50%. We are holding them to their promise and say, what happened to your promise?
Ma'am.
How do you think the impact of the increase in indirect taxes to the purchasing power and the demand thereof and its impact on...
Well, I have not yet fully studied Part B. All I know is there are lots of cesses, surcharges, etc. One has to really study it more carefully. I don't know whether he has estimated what will be the tax effect of his direct taxes and non-direct taxes. I don't know. Unless I study it, I can't make a comment. But my first impression was that Part B of the budget speech was a bag of miscellaneous proposals.
Sir,
Supriya.
Why don't you ask him?
हेल्थ और एजुकेशन जैसे अहम इम्पोर्टेंट सेक्टर में रिड्यूस करना बनी का क्या ये इसका इम्पैक्ट कितना निगेटिव होगा सोसाइटी पे?
Well, I don't know. I have not yet studied all the figures, but if you say that they have reduced the allocation, that I don't know. I have not yet looked at the numbers so closely.
Supriya, let's have at least one question from everybody. We'll go to the repeat questions.
But GAR was, in fact, introduced by us, announced by us. They postponed it. But the postponement of GAR is not accepted by economists, or postponement of GAR was not a good idea, but for whatever reason they postponed it. If they wish to implement it now, I would welcome it.
You wanted to ask.
What do you want to say to the finance minister's statement that this year allocation of 35,000 crore for M1 Riga is the highest so far?
You see, I can give you at least half a dozen examples where it will always be the highest so far. Because every year, even if you increase it by a small number, it will always be the highest so far. It is like saying, in my life, my age today is the highest so far. Every year it will be higher. The number of cars you produce will indeed be the highest so far.
One second, Ritu.
Mr. Chidambaram, do you think that this government has abandoned the Gujarat model and is moving actually from the right to the left?
Well, if they've abandoned the Gujarat model, whatever the model may be, I think we should welcome it wholeheartedly.
The BJP is saying this is a poor budget.
I don't know. See, these are catch-all phrases, pro, poor, etc. We have to look at it sectorally. Who is happy, I want to know. Is the taxpayer happy? I doubt it. Is the homemaker happy? I doubt it. Is the middle class happy? I seriously doubt it. Is the market happy? As I left home, I found that the market had said thumbs down. So I don't think you can give a general answer like pro-poor, pro-rich, pro-this, pro-that. We have to analyze it more carefully. My first impression, my overall impression is, with 282 members in the Lok Sabha, an absolute majority which no government had for 30 years, with two budgets behind them, right in the third year of their government, they should have attempted bold structural reforms. reforms of the factor markets, reform of the product markets. If they have not attempted bold structural reforms, I'm afraid I have to conclude, regrettably, that it is a wasted opportunity.
So many ministers in government today had said that it's neither a popular nor a reformist, neither a populist nor a reformist. It's a popular budget. Do you agree to what government ministers have been saying?
It is obviously popular among ministers.
Ma'am, you wanted to ask something. You already asked. Can we have give her a chance, please? She's been waiting.
No, let's talk about the budget first.
Let's have a question on the budget.
Well, Prime Minister had said yesterday that it was his test today. Has he passed the test? Prime Minister had said yesterday it was his test today. His exam.
As I said, you are asking the same question in a different way. I'm not an examiner. I'm not a rating agency. We are speaking for a political party.
Bilal. Sir, do you think does this budget really complement to the Make in India?
Well, as I said, key sectors face very difficult problems, and I've listed the sectors. I don't think the government has yet come to grips with the problems of these sectors. I know the acute problems faced by steel, coal, oil and gas, cement. The one sector that has done well, or appears to be reasonably doing well, is the road sector. But I can't think of any other major sector in which the government has come to grips with the problem.
Mr. Chidambaram, do you think the perceived polarized atmosphere in the country might damage the economy of the country?
No, let's talk about the budget. I don't think the budget deals with polarization.
Sunil, I think they are all done with the questions.
Former Prime Minister Mr. Manmohan Singh in his first reactions to the budget has said that he doesn't believe that farm income will increase in 5 years. He doesn't think it's realistic. You share his view on that, the fact that it is not achievable at all in the next 5 years?
Farm income will increase in 5 years only if you address issues of price and productivity. This budget is silent both on issue of price and productivity. So I think Dr. Manmohan Singh is right when he says it's very unlikely that farm income will double in 5 years.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, sir.
On what? I know you will have questions. What is it about? One question on Afzal Guru, yes. All right, one question, Ishwar. All right, one each. I don't want the focus on the budget to be taken away. But I will take one question each. One question. All right, what is the question on Afzal Guru? Why does he have to point fingers? I am saying so. I say that as minister, when it was brought to my notice that the first affidavit was ambiguous, and the first affidavit had been filed without my approval, and it was being misinterpreted, it is my duty to correct the first affidavit. So we filed a supplementary affidavit after consulting the Home Secretary, the Director of the Intelligence Bureau, and other officers. That second affidavit clarified what the real intention was. What did the second affidavit say? The second affidavit said, the primary concern of the central government, the central government in the said affidavit did not address any issue relating to the merits or otherwise of the police action. It was essentially concerned with dealing with the allegations relating to the intelligence inputs which were available with the central government and which are shared on a regular basis with the state governments. The primary concern of the central government was to see that the inputs gathered by the Indian security agencies and their efforts were not discredited. It should be clear to all, such inputs do not constitute conclusive proof, and it is for the state government and the state police to act on such inputs. The central government is in no way concerned with such action, nor does it condone or endorse any unjustified or excessive action. If on a proper consideration of the facts, it is found that an independent inquiry and investigation has to be carried by CBI or otherwise, the Union of India would have no objection to such a course and would abide by such orders which the court may deem fit to pass. Now, which part of the second affidavit is wrong? It's an absolutely correct affidavit, and I, as minister, accept responsibility for this affidavit, and it is disappointing that a Home Secretary who was equally responsible wants to distance himself from that today.
So the Ministry of Home Affairs has sought all the files regarding this entire issue of case.
No, you're most welcome to look at it. I've read from the affidavit. I've read from the affidavit.
Sir, my question was on clarification of what you said, whether that Afzal Guru, whether you regret that you have not...
Have you read what I said about Afzal Guru? All right, let me read it to you. Since you didn't answer my question, I assume you didn't read it. All right. Here it is. Here it is. Listen to this. I think it is possible to hold an honest opinion that Afzal Guru case was perhaps not correctly decided. But being in government, you cannot say the court has decided that case wrongly because it was the government that prosecuted him. But an independent person can hold an opinion that the case was not decided correctly. I think the language is quite plain. If someone holds an honest opinion, he doesn't become an anti-national or that is not seditious. Did I say that that was my opinion? Please read the question and the answer.
Is that your opinion, sir?
My opinion was I was part of the government when he was prosecuted, he was convicted. I am part of the government. How can I distance myself from that government's position? But if a third party, if a third person holds an opinion, he doesn't become anti-national. That doesn't become seditious.
But Mr. Chidambaram, you later in that interview, you were quoted as saying it, but there are grave doubts about the extent of...
Again, as the answer to a question.
Yeah.
At that time, there were grave doubts expressed, even at that time. That is what I said. There were grave doubts, not there are. Please read there were grave doubts expressed about the extent of his involvement. There were grave doubts expressed about the punishment given to him.
Is that your position also?
My position is the position of the government.
Right now. But I'm asking now.
My position, how can I distance myself? I was part of the government. I can't distance myself. I was part of the government. Just because you leave the government, you distance yourself from the government's position. That is a luxury to former civil servants, not to ministers.
Thank you.